Good morning. Today I'm going to work section 4.4. This is applications of linear systems. Now, yes, this is word problems, and I'm sorry for that, but they exist. We have to deal with them. What we're going to do is this section is about giving you some options. A lot of these problems you could work the way we did in the first chapter we did. You can set these up with one variable. With one variable, the setup is hard, but solving the equation is fairly easy. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about now how to set these up with two variables. The setup is easier, but then you have a system you have to solve. It's a bit of a trade-off. Now, even if we were taking paper tests, I would not care what method you use. Whatever way pops in your head first, go with it. One of the things you have to worry about when you're doing these, solving these with two variables is making sure that whatever choice you make for your variables is obvious. You're going to need to tell who's going to be grading your test that you know exactly what your variables stand for, and you will have choices, okay? So let's look at this first problem. In 2003, the top two formats of U.S. commercial radio stations were country and news talk. There were 288 fewer news talk stations than country stations, and together they comprised a total of 3,912 stations. How many of each format were there? Okay, remember, the first read through, all we're looking for is to understand what we're being asked to do. We don't have to have a clue what we're doing. We're given some information about two types of radio stations. We're told that one of them has more than the other, and we know how many there are altogether, and we're asked to find how many of each. Okay? One of the first things I'm going to do here is there's a number in here that has zero to do with the actual problem. It does not matter that it was 2003 at all. Doesn't affect anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start organizing my information to figure out what I have. I have country stations, and I have news talk stations. I need one of these to be X and one of them to be Y. It does not matter which is which, you just need to make it clear. So I'm going to call country X and news talk Y. So I have X country stations, Y news talk stations. Now, when you're trying to set these up with two variables, you have to come up with two equations. When we set up with one variable, we need one equation. Later on, college algebra, if you have three variables, you'll need three equations. That always has to match. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to look at is there were 288 fewer news talk stations than country stations. So this is going to involve a subtraction, and we know subtractions are always a little bit weird. So think about this for a second. Which of these two needs to be bigger? There were fewer news talk than country, so country needs to be the larger number, right? So let's just mark that. Okay, so I know that there are 288 between them. So if I take the number of country stations and then subtract off the number of news talk stations, I should get 288 because the difference between the two is 288. So that's my first equation. My second equation, we know that together there are this many. So that means if I take the number of country stations and add the number of news talk stations, then I should get 3,912. And this is the system I need to solve. Now, I'm assuming you don't want to graph these, and I certainly wouldn't with numbers this big. And besides, solving by graphing is not the easiest way to get these done. So I'm going to use elimination. And what we first want to do is we want to make sure that we add, when we add the two equations together, one of our variables is going to go away. Our y's are already set to go away. This is -1, this is +1. If I add these together, those go away. So I have x plus x, which is 2x, equal to 288 plus 3,912 is 4,200. Divide both sides by a 2. And we get that x must equal 2,100. So what we have found so far is that we found x, and x is the number of country stations. So we know that we have 2,100 country stations. We are asked to find how many of each, so I still need to find News Talk, which means I need to solve for Y. Now, just like in 4.3, we're going to take this impact, substitute it someplace. I'm going to choose to go in here, and that would give me 2,100 plus Y is equal to 3,912. I need to move this over to here, subtract 2,100 from both sides, and we get Y is equal to 1812. So therefore, there are 1,812 News Talk stations. Now, we always have to ask ourselves if our answers are reasonable. So think about it. We couldn't get a negative number here. We can't have a negative number of stations. We need to have whole numbers because we can't have 2.5 radio stations. This one's actually fairly easy to check. We know that together they're supposed to equal 3,912. Add these together, you'll see that it works. We know that there's supposed to be 288 between them. Do the subtraction, it works. We know that country was supposed to be the larger number, so this totally makes sense.